Welcome back to the Marching Arts Network, and this is the podcast for week 1 of the DCI season. My name is Kanan, and to my left or right, depending on which way you're looking on the screen, is, of course,
The Stress Master,
the
joining you
Stress
live
Master.
from beautiful Arizona.
Yeah, so this isn't going to be as long of an episode as we normally do, simply because we're having all sorts of technical issues that we've decided we're going to stop being cheap and get an actual streaming service as opposed to trying to do everything half-assed on Zoom. So, no, there was no podcast last week because we had, again, some technical issues, I'm afraid, and there was a couple of things in there that were pretty important that I think that bear addressing again. The main one being is that there was a comment made on our last video around negativity. I'm going to try to positively address that comment, and that is that this is an opinion show. Would you agree, Justin? We have opinions
It's an
and we like to
opinion
talk
show.
about them. And you know what? We're not always going to like everything that comes out. Okay? I'll be honest with you. I'm a Blue Devils fan. I don't like the show this year. I'll talk about that in a bit. But does that mean that the Blue Devils suck? No, of course it doesn't. The Blue Devils are great. They're probably going to win again. Okay? I just don't particularly like the show that much. Whenever we do talk, if we do see something that we don't like or that maybe we take an issue with, we're going to address it. We're going to say our opinions, but we're also going to try to say what we would do different. So if Nanny, whatever your numbers were after your name, if that's not your cup of tea, this might not be the channel for you. So that's what I'm going to say on that. Justin, do you want to address it at all, or?
Okay, so yeah, I do have an opinion on that. My opinion is that, we're going to have them. You have opinions. You have an opinion that you thought we were being negative, right? So we'll try not to be as negative. We'll try to be more positive, but we are going to have an opinion. And sometimes when we compound opinions, it's going to come across as negative. And we take that stuff to heart. We don't like being a negative channel. Like we want to have, positivity in the activity. We want to promote the activity. But if we don't like something, we don't like the direction things are going, we're going to say something and say we don't like the direction things are going, right? So just take that wherever you will. And like you said, this may not be the channel for you. And there's other channels out there. There's lots of great channels out there that do things a little bit differently. But that's where we stand. We'll try to be positive. We'll try to present things. But if we don't like something, we are definitely going to say something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Opinions are like buttholes. Everyone's got one and they all stink.
That's right.
So, what have you? What's your thoughts on what's going on in the drum corps world this week? Anything jump out at you? Anything particularly of interest to you?
A lot of things, actually. I mean, yeah, I was shocked at how good everybody was.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, just like, well, I mean, and I kind of like, I was thinking about that, and I think the reason why is because they have an extra 3 weeks that we didn't have
yeah,
when we marched, because we always started either, I think it was like the second weekend of June or the first weekend of June, depending on where it fell. So it was usually like the 6th, 7th, or 8th of June. But with the 3 extra weeks, that's 3 extra weeks of cleaning, gelling as an ensemble, getting work added, stuff like that. Because we would literally show without even a closer.
yeah. Exactly,
We would just show
exactly.
without a closer. Yeah.
I
So I
see
think that's
these.
great that they're starting later. I think it's great.
I see these cores coming. I mean, I even remember back in our day. Now, granted, scoring was different back then, mind you. Okay, but I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't uncommon. Blue Devils were coming out in the low 60s. Do you know what I mean? And now they're coming out with a 75. So, um, and I look at a lot of these cores now. The stuff that these kids are putting on the field now is just unbelievably good. I look at cores now that have come out in their first show, and I think that show right there, as it stands today, would have made finals back in our day. And they're
Yeah.
only getting better from there.
Yeah. I think definitely like those cores is Blue Devils, Boston Crusaders, and Blue Coats. All three of those could easily. They could probably still be in the top five with
Yeah.
what they started with today. And granted, it's they're still going to add a lot more stuff to it, but and let's talk about those cores because we got a
Yeah,
lot of scores to go over. God, there's
let's
so I mean, and honestly, I don't agree with all the scores, but let's go for it.
let's talk about some show design then. So yeah, so when we're talking about show design, I'm going to say this right now. This is going to be possibly my negative take of the episode, and that's let's talk about the Blue Devils, shall we? If you like.
Sure, let's talk about them.
I like the Blue Devils. I'm an unabashed, publicly outed, massive Blue Devils fan. And I don't like the show this year. Is it bad?
I don't
No, no, by no means.
know.
They're really really good. But I've seen this show before. I saw it last year. I saw it the year before that. I saw it the year before that, and I saw it in 2019. You know, and I find that frustrating that now look, the argument could be made that look, they've struck onto the winning formula. You know, they know how to design a show that wins, and there's no question about that. But I find myself watching them, and then I find myself having watched the Bluecoats last night, and I just look at that show and I think, God, how much innovation is in that show? Yeah, they're going to piss people off that they're wearing red and white and they look like the University of Indiana basketball team, you know. But there's so much innovation. The last time I saw that much innovation in a drum corps show, it was the same corps in 2015 when they did Kinetic Noise, you
Or
know.
20 or 2014 tilt or 2022. Let's look at
Yeah.
2022 when they did the Rifts and Revelations. That was an off the wall show, or any of the years they did the Beatles, or you know um and not saying they pushed the envelope really hard, but I mean, but this year's show is reminiscent to me of like what 93 Star was. It's something you
Wow.
have to like sit there and watch and go, what the hell did I just watch? And go,
Exactly.
do I like it? Do I not like it? And then you watch it a few times and you go, holy crap, this is like a completely different type of way of doing a show. I think they're doing it backwards.
How so? What do you mean?
If you notice, the end of the show is like they're going to start the show. Because when the guy gets up there, he's going to start playing, but he puts his horn down. But at the
I hadn't
beginning of the
even looked at it
show,
that way.
and if you look at the beginning of the show, they're just going bum, bum, and then they move bum, 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 and they just move back and forth. So it's just kind of like this weird. I don't know. It's just so. I don't know if it's a show in reverse. You know what I mean?
I'll put some
That's
video of
because
it.
to me, that's
I'll
what it
put some
seems like.
video over the top of this here somewhere because um, I'm not sure how much we want to
Trippy.
play and worry about the old copyright monsters and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
because Flo's
but
cracking
to
down. So
but to me, that show is also just as innovative from a visual standpoint as it is from a musical standpoint. And going back to the Blue Devils, like I said, there's nothing particularly wrong with that Blue Devils show. It's the formula that they've used to win 3 times, and you know what? Let's be honest, they're probably going to win again this year. Okay,
I don't know. I don't know.
but
Boston and
to
Bluecoats, man, are
but
really
to
good.
me, a guy who has been a Blue Devils fan for decades, to say I'm kind of bored of it to me is kind of problematic. So, and like I said, that's not shitting on the kids or anything like that. They're out there just laying it down, and they're really really good. I just think that with that much talent and that staff that they've got there, that they could easily come out and do something against the norm, so to speak. So, but yeah, when you look at
Yeah.
other innovative cores, Glitch on the other hand, um, I'm blown away by that show. Mandarins, I think, have a really cool, innovative show. I love that thing that the Mandarins do with hiding the horn line inside the prop at the
Oh
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
open.
The opening,
That is
yeah.
so cool, you know. And to be fair, there
I
are
like
some
that.
moments in Blue Devils that I really, really like. I love how the color guard comes out in the beginning of the Blue Devils show from behind everybody in the cape. You get that instant flash of color, which I think is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
for me, the staging at the beginning is
It's
just
just too
muddled.
busy.
It's just yeah. Well, I mean, and they kind of doing it the same way they did it in 22, where they in 22 they started in the center and kind of came out. Now they're starting
Mm.
on the side and coming out. But there's just so much density, and a lot of their drill is compact. It's like barely. I don't think it goes beyond the back hash like ever, from what I remember. And
Yeah,
to me, it's like it doesn't seem to be very expansive, which I get why they're trying to keep it condensed because the sound is better when you're closer up. But if you look at shows like anybody else's show, they're pushing out.
yeah,
They're
absolutely.
going to be beyond.
And,
Yeah.
and to me, that's probably one of my biggest gripes with that show is that the way that the staging is done with there's so much color on the field, and with the capes, the individual members take up so much individual space on the field that when you reduce the amount of stage that they've got, it's so condensed, and I find it hard to read. You know,
Yeah, I
so
agree. I agree.
so, but yeah. I look at Boston. I look at. Let's talk about Phantom Regiment. Jen's not here. We can say whatever we want. Um, Hi, Jen. Absolutely adore that show. I think that with a few tweaks, this is my hot take of the day. I think with a few tweaks, that's a show that could potentially medal. I really do. And yes, of course, there are all of the Babylon comparisons. It's no secret as well that those guys that designed Babylon are all working at Phantom Regiment now. Um, but Jen said something a while back that I thought really struck a chord with me is that when you go back and you watch Babylon, it's almost like you're watching a Phantom Regiment show performed by Vanguard anyway. So
Yeah.
I just I really like the show. I like I like the whole visual palette. I like the fact that Phantom Regiment still looks like Phantom Regiment, even though it's a modern take
Yep.
of them. Um, there are a few uniforms that have come out. In fact, there's one I've not put up on the list, but I'll put it in. That I've looked at the uniforms. I thought, who the hell is that? Strangely enough, Bluecoats wasn't one of them. It didn't surprise me that Bluecoats came out without a scrap of blue to be found anywhere. Um,
Yeah.
I've kind of come to
But I
expect
was
that
really
of them.
perplexed. I was really perplexed with Santa Clara
They're
in
wearing literal
because
Blue Devil blue.
well, it's not even and honestly, I mean, if they want to wear blue, that's great, and they do have red, right? But it's the color choice for me that's kind of hard to read. Like when I was trying to watch the visual, like, and maybe it'll look different once they're at Lucas Oil Stadium, right? Because that stadium is much brighter. The color green is different on the field, but then you're going to have red, green, and blue, and have the three base colors
Yeah,
on the
wow.
field, red, green, blue.
I'd never even thought of it like that, you
Which,
know?
and I was just like, yeah, that's. And I saw when the green on the field, and I'm like, it's red, green, blue. And like I said, I don't have a problem with if you want to go for something different. And they came out strong, really strong,
Mm.
really strong sound. Um, but the visual for me, having those colors when there's literally just it looks like one blue color. They're like there's no accents or anything happening really that you can really see. For me, the visual kind of gets a little bit, but they'll clean it up. They'll clean it up. But it's just for me, I have to get used to that look. You know what I mean? It's just a
Yeah,
different look. It's all one solid color as opposed to like different shades or accents in the upper body. Whose uniform I do really like, and now I don't like Santa Clara's. Don't be bagging on me for that. I like the Colts. I really like what they did with the uniform, and it goes down the leg, and they
oh,
have
I
the
hate
separate
that
leg
uniform.
because I'll tell you why. Because once they clean up the visual piece, you're going to see the distinction when they're flipping and turning. It's going to create a different visual look from white to the black on the leg, and
Mm.
it's going to really pop. Now, remember when VK did that in '92, and they were one color this way, they flip around and be a completely different color. It's super effective, but you have to be clean.
Right. Right.
That's going to be the thing. And some people make comments like you can see their leg because one leg is dark, one leg is lighter. So you're going to see they have to be perfectly clean with your feet. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's my choice anyway.
So yeah, so there, yeah.
Okay,
So let's go ahead and talk
reveals,
about the first thing I want to talk about is the Blue Knights. So yeah, we think
Yeah,
it's
I like it.
certain. It's different. I don't know what those materials are, but I can't imagine that that would be very comfortable to wear in Natchitoches, Louisiana, in the end of July. I can see that
Yeah,
smell. I can see that smelling pretty bad. Um, yeah, it's
I
a
like
look.
it though.
I suppose when I look at modern uniforms, though, the question I have, though, and this is well, I suppose it's a question, but it's something that was kind of answered to me when I saw Mandarins. Is you've got these uniforms that look really, really cool up close in a picture booth and with good lighting and all that stuff. But how much of what we're seeing here translates to the guy sat in the cheap seats? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So when I
yeah,
saw Mandarins, I saw that uniform initially, which we'll look at that one in a second, and I thought, oh, that's a really, really cool looking uniform. But when I saw them at the first show that was being shown on Flow, which wasn't shown under the greatest of lighting, okay, in a stadium that had a running track between the field and the stadium, or the field and the stands, and a lot of those individual elements of that uniform, even including the glittery individual face masks, are just completely lost. So, um, so that,
yeah. I think it'll show well though at finals because that's a
mm,
really well lit stadium. So I think maybe that's kind of the end goal. You know what I mean?
yeah. Anyway, I have a history of bagging on the Blue Knights, but I now know that the Blue Knights have a tour dog, so I
Oh, very
like them
cool.
now. They're all right by me. They're all right
Yeah.
by me. Dog people are all right by me. Right. Let's talk about the Blue Coats. Thoughts?
My thoughts, I don't know. I mean, it's going to make them look really clean because they have a very vertical stripe
Mm,
going down the center of their body. They have vertical stripes going down their legs, so they have to march really clean, and they are marching clean. I don't know why they couldn't just do it in blue,
it's going to show
but I
off.
guess
It's
it's.
going to show off every discrepancy of lower leg technique out there.
But
But
man,
that
have you
being
seen their
said,
marching though?
they're
Woo,
marching so well. They're marching so
gosh,
well. I like it. Now, many of you will know that I live in the north of England, and it's actually the Euros right now, and England is still in the Euros, and they're basically wearing the St. George's Cross. So I got to get behind that. No, actually, I quite like the uniform. Yes, they look like the Indiana Hoosiers basketball team, but the show has changed everything. So. Um, and let's be honest, the Bluecoats seem to revel in pissing people off with their look. So more power to them, I guess. I only wish that the whole corps
man.
came out dressed with what the drum major's wearing. I think the drum major uniform is brilliant, which I think it's on here as
I
well.
don't remember. Yeah,
There you
let's just
go.
take a look. Oh yeah, that looks like Phantom.
How
That
awesome
really
would
looks like
that look?
Phantom, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it look like Phantom Regiment though?
Well, no, that's the Bluecoats uniform from a few years ago, just in white and red.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My apologies, everyone. Don't get all mad.
Yeah.
But
Get mad.
yeah,
So yeah.
that would be brilliant if they look like that.
And then, of course, there's the color guard uniform as well, which I think is brilliant. It contrasts the core nicely, but it's got the red in there to tie in. I say the core. I wish there was a term. The musicians, I guess. It ties in with the musicians' uniforms with having that flash of red in there. And yellow color guard uniforms are kind of become a blue coats thing anyway. So yeah, I actually quite like the blue coats look. Um,
Yeah.
their drums are sexy as hell as well. I'm talking about the drums, not the drummers. Uh, but yeah, so that's the blue coats. I really like the look. Next one up is Cavaliers.
Is that Cavaliers?
That is
I'm sure I've
Cavaliers.
seen
That's the
it.
color guard uniform.
Okay.
Uh, the brass uniform that a lot of people are calling a dress. Um, and then, of course, the uniform they come out in. Um, I like that uniform. I like that one. I like that one a lot. I wish it had a little bit more green in it. I like the guard
The
uniform.
drum major has green in it.
Yeah, I don't like
The
that
drum
uniform.
major's armor has the green. Yeah, I'm
I,
not.
I don't like that not because people are calling it a dress. I just don't like that uniform. Full stop. I just don't think it looks very good. I think it loses all upper body shape once they're wearing that, and you can't see their feet either.
And the color's good from far away, but you're right.
Yeah.
I think they have black pants on underneath, right?
Mhm.
They still
Mhm.
have the black pants. So I mean, it doesn't really hurt the feet too badly. Um, I mean, I think it's a great color from up. You can really see it from up top. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're trying to go for is they're changing from the armor, losing the armor,
To
going
what lies
to
beneath.
that look.
To
Yeah,
under
which
the
is
armor.
fine. You know, yeah, that's what. Yeah, and I like that color because you can see it's ombre. There's some blue towards the midsection there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a smart choice for color. I mean, it's the Cavaliers colors.
All right.
So
Next up,
right
we've
on.
had a lot of uniform reveals over the last few days. Colts. You like it? I don't. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and they have one white shoe and one black shoe.
That's the bit I don't like.
I think I think it's cool. I don't know why I think it's cool because from a visual standpoint, when I'm looking at them, it's and if they use it, if they can use that technique properly, I think they can create an illusion of like matching colors. Like if you have one person facing front, one person facing back, now it's white and then red. And then if
Mm,
they turn around, they can maybe do something with that. I think that's probably what they're going to try to do, some color illusions.
yeah.
So,
Have you seen the show yet?
but I yes, I did.
What were your thoughts?
I think my thoughts are I think they started out pretty good. I think they have a little bit to clean up, and they could have just started late or whatever. But um, I like the show. I think it's well designed. I don't think there's anything that I was like kind of like that changed this or changed that because I haven't really
Well,
seen. I've only seen it one time, so
while we're talking about shows, let's go back and talk about these guys, Cavaliers. What's your thoughts? I've got some thoughts.
I'll let you start.
Yeah, so my thoughts on Cavaliers show is look, first things first, elephant in the room, the soloist has had a bad couple of bad runs. Does that mean he's a bad player? By no question. No. He's a top 12 DCI soloist. He would have auditioned for the part. You don't know what the kid's going through. Maybe he's got a sunburn, maybe he's got cracked lips. Whatever. There's a lot of different things that can cause a soloist to have a bad night. I played a solo. I think you were in the solo section, weren't you? It's a
Yep.
pretty tough gig. Okay, so cut the kids some slack, I'd say. But my biggest issue with this show sits around design. I think we're seeing a very similar take to what we had last year. They've come out a bit slow, score wise. There's no getting around that. They have a very strong percussion section. I think that the brass section is stronger than the show that's been given to them. I also think that visually they need to make a change there. And I can't believe I'm saying that about the Cavaliers.
Yeah, and I think they'll clean it up. I think they're going to, and they did that last year. We saw a transformation of that show last year, and everybody's shows transform.
Mm,
And they have 6 weeks to finals. So I think you're going to see some changes. You're going to see they're going to clean up areas they know, and that's the hard part when you put out a show like this. Like you're trying to get it on the field, right?
yeah.
So your first goal is we need to get this show on the field by June 28th or whatever the date is. And you cannot make a lot of changes or alterations. You have to just teach it, put it on the field, and then kind of go, okay, now what do we do? What
How
changes
do
do
we
we
fix
make?
it?
And then yeah, how do you fix it? And honestly, I've done that so many times with my shows. I've had to rewrite complete sections of shows
Mm,
because it just does not work. You write it and think it looks great on Pieware, and then you're like, ooh, yeah, that doesn't really work.
Yeah,
And then you have to
turns
rewrite the
out that 4'2" flute player can't do 4 to 5, so at 210 beats a
exactly.
minute.
And you know
Um,
what though? Cavaliers are great about cleaning and getting things clean. So we'll see a very clean Cavaliers show by
they
final.
are. I suppose the only thing that concerns me about Cavaliers is they're to me they're a little bit too close to that 10th through 16th mire for my liking. If you know, they're only about a point clear of that grouping. If you know that kind of group of death, and I think we had that group of death last year, and I think we're gonna have that group of death this year again as well. In fact, my very early preseason top 12 takes, I actually had two cores from last year not making it in this year. And I also said that
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
I'll be surprised if between 10th and 16th there's more than a 2 point spread. So, anyway, so that's
Yeah.
Cavaliers. Madison Scouts have come out with a new look, which is a little bit polarizing to some. I've heard a lot of people say, I like one half of the uniform. Um, I like it. I like it.
No,
The
I
show's
like it. It makes
called.
them look nice and tall.
They're
Go
wearing
ahead, sir.
headgear, which I like. There's nods to Madison's past in there with the fleur de lis and the Aussie. Um, there's
Yeah.
flashes of color. I would have maybe liked the flashes of color to be a little bit brighter. Um, but yeah, overall, I like it. I like the look. And they've come out a lot stronger this year than they did last year as well, which we'll talk about in the scores. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that I like it. I think it makes them like look nice and tall. And I'm assuming that you can see their backdrop and their uniforms. The colors are in that palette.
Yeah.
So it's tying everything in. I really like the look. It makes them look really tall and sleek, which is what you want. All right,
Right. Next up is Mandarins. I'll let you start.
another switch in color. Another switch in color because Mandarins were predominantly in red last year, right? If I'm not
Red,
mistaken.
yeah, reds and blacks, yeah, and
Reds and blacks.
but
Now we're blues and purples.
but we've been a chameleon core for a while though. Let's be honest. I mean, back in our day, they were the little pink core, weren't they? um,
Yes.
and they were badass as well back in the day as well. Winning DCI Division Two with like 10 horns, it was ridiculous. Yeah, no,
Yep.
I keep looking up here, by the way, because my screen's up there. No, I absolutely
Gotcha.
adore this look. It completely matches their show. As I said, though, earlier in this episode, though, is that when seeing it from a distance in a stadium that doesn't have the greatest of lighting, it does I think pose a few problems in that when you look at the individual uniform bits, you know, again, it's all stuff that looks amazing, right up close to each other. But you lose all of that once you get any distance to it, So I think that it needs a flash of color in it somewhere, just to just to
Yeah.
delineate the various aspects of the uniform. I don't know how you do it, especially at this point. The uniforms are done, they're ordered, they're on the kids. But to me, it
Yeah.
does need some sort of a flash of color in there somewhere.
And I'm wondering, once again, Lucas Oil Stadium has a different light source and a different. So I bet you'll, and this is kind of one thing I've noticed over the last, they've been there for what, 15 years now or something like that.
Yeah,
Years, I don't know how long they've been there. Um, but they
2009.
design things, yeah, they design things specifically for that stadium,
Yeah,
and they just kind of bite the bullet until they get there, which makes sense, right? Because that's the championship. So I'm wondering, and I'm sure when they designed the uniforms, they're like, okay, what's the lighting going to be? What is the field color? You know,
mm,
what's that shade and how does it look? And I'm wondering if this is going to pop a lot better in that stadium.
yeah,
Like you said, with low lights and stuff, it's really hard to see detail. Like you can't see the details in the vest.
yeah.
But I bet you once they get into Lucas Oil, you're going to see all of that detail
Yeah,
because it's so bright in there.
You're probably right, like I said, I am judging it off of a high school stadium in Southern California in not the greatest of lights, with a running track between. So, yeah, but to
Yeah.
me, again, that to me seems to be the Achilles heel, if you will, of modern uniform design. Whereas in certain instances, though, that yeah, I kind of bagged on them earlier, but Blue Devils don't have that problem. They don't have that problem at all because they make their uniforms so bold to the point that they're almost garish to look at up close. You know,
Yeah, but they look
so
great from far away.
they look amazing from far away. So yeah, so that's Mandarins. Love the show, by the way. I do. I really I dig voodoo culture anyway. You know, the whole New Orleans voodoo
Yeah.
culture thing. I just think it's a super cool show. I think it's pretty dirty right now. Cleaned up, I think that could be a show that's gonna put a fright in a few people. So
The only thing I think I would change is the wrought iron looking stuff right there at the top is black. I think they should make that like a copper or bronze color. It would pop more.
pretty easy to do with a bit of
But
spray paint, you'd have thought.
yeah, because I can't see that honestly when I was when they had them come up on the field, I couldn't really tell those were railings.
Mm,
So, but that's whatever minor. I'm probably just nitpicking. And once again, in Lucas Oil, it's probably going to look great.
yeah,
So what do I
exactly.
know?
You know, you got a giant white football helmet in the middle of the field anyway, so you'll be able to see it then anyway.
Yeah, true
So
that. True.
how hard would it be just to hide that damn helmet for 3 nights? Do you know what I mean?
I know. Put a DCI logo there. I'd be cool with
Well, I
that.
think I think I read somewhere. I think BOA doesn't have the helmet in the field. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
They probably pay for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and did you see they turned that stadium into an Olympic swimming pool?
that's nuts. That is absolutely nuts.
It's
But
currently an Olympic swimming pool.
so now something I did see the other day though is that I think it's WrestleMania is going to be there for 3 nights or 3 weeks, something like that, in August of next year. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any
Hmm.
scheduling conflicts.
I doubt it. I doubt it
Hmm.
because they have this locked in for like 15 years now. So
I know a little stadium in southern Wisconsin that'd be a pretty cool place to hold finals at. But to be honest,
yeah.
okay. Well, let me ask you this then. While we're on the topic of stadiums, in your opinion, what's the best place DCI's ever had finals?
Ooh, Kansas City.
I agree.
Kansas City. I don't know
Now
what
the
it
now,
was. I don't know if it's because it was my first year, but it was bright. The acoustics were good. The stadium was just perfect for that venue. I don't know.
to me, it's centrally located. It's just as far for everybody to get there. Okay. Number two, the stadium was brilliant. Number three, there's plenty of parking. Number four, plenty of warm up sites as well. Cores could warm up in the stadium parking lot and still be far enough away to not be heard. You know, if you remember marching across that parking lot for like what seemed like an hour just to get into the stadium, you know.
Yeah.
Kansas City, there's a lot going on there as well. There's plenty of hotel rooms. You know, if you're looking at it from me from just a stadium perspective, you would probably think I would say Madison, and actually you'd be wrong. For me, from a pure stadium perspective, it was Bloomington. Now, there was
Hmm.
no hotel rooms there. There was nowhere to park and all that stuff. But the stadium itself, I remember it was either 91 or 92. They had preview of champions in there. I can't remember which year it was. And I remember turning around and saying to our friend John Rashawn, this would be the perfect place for DCI finals. Because the thing about that stadium is just one stand and it's practically vertical. And it's just a wall of
Yeah, I remember
humanity.
that.
It's just a
Yeah.
wall of humanity about 10 feet from the front sideline. So, anyway, moving on. The other new look that we saw, of course, was our friends over in Rockford at Phantom Regiment. Absolutely love, love, love the look. But I would say that those trousers on the musicians are very tight. There's been a couple of times where I'm thinking maybe you need to get the what is it that male dancers wear? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So,
So
but no,
someone else made a comment about another core. I can't remember what core it was though, about having that same issue.
blue coats,
Oh, okay,
which
Blue Coats. Thank you.
but
Yeah.
no, I absolutely adore the show. And you know what? My hat's off to that kid that in the very beginning of the show, that's hanging from that cage. He has got the most
Yeah.
incredible core strength ever.
Exactly.
But no, I
Yeah, I
love the
really
whole
dig
look.
this show.
I dig the show. I dig the look. I love the fact that the musicians still have the classic Phantom Regiment look. I like the color in the color guard. Um, and I like the fact that the colors in the color guard uniform are all doolally like somebody who's deep in their mind. So yeah, no, I really like that a lot.
Yep, very
We've had a
cool.
little bit of a sneak peek at. Do you know who this is at first glance?
No, I have no
It's Spirit
idea.
of Atlanta.
Oh, okay. And once again, no blue.
I don't think we've had enough. I don't think we've had an official uniform revealed from them yet, but I did find this on their Facebook page.
So, okay, so I'm going to ask this into the drum corps community. Okay, every now and again, like what happens is all these corps decide to do something together at the exact same time. They always do something like we're all going to wear yellow for the color guard. We're all going to have X. But this year, everybody's wearing the opposite colors they normally wear. And it's everybody. Because Spirit of Atlanta is blue and black, right? Unless I'm mistaken. And we got Santa Clara with blue. They still have red in the color guard, but it's blue on their bodies. And
Hmm.
then blue coats wearing red, so they should be called the red coats, right? I mean, it's just like confusing to me.
Well, I was trying to. Oh, hey, Jason, how you doing? There's our friend Jason.
Hey, Jason. Yeah,
Yeah, so I believe the color guard is wearing red and white. Actually, I can't find the picture now, um,
I
but
really
yeah,
do like the uniform though. It makes them look really tall, really, really sleek again. And that's really the
I
key to having clean drill, man. You got to have that sleek look. Otherwise, especially in the upper half, if you have like a lot
that's
of stuff hanging on, it creates a weird imbalance, you know?
that's the. Next up is our friends from Casper. We've got a little bit of a video here. There we go.
We had seen some images up there earlier.
Oh, that's super loud.
I can't hear it at all, so we're good. Play it loud.
It's super loud at my end. I'm probably going to have to edit that out.
It's a good thing you have my audio separate. Oh, wait, am I recording my audio? Yes, I am. Okay. Hallelujah. Okay.
So
He
I'll
didn't
see if
really
I can
give
get
us
back. Do
a good look at that. He
you want
didn't
to
really
look at
give
it
us a
one more
good look at
time?
that.
Let's have a
Yeah,
look at
let's
it
do
one
it
more
more time.
time.
You can use this for your edit here. Yeah, okay.
And I'll do a pause.
Okay.
So,
With this color, you can't the color of light. You really can't see the detail of the uniform. So
well, I have seen a video of them taken from low in the stadium. It looks like it's shades of browns and tans and reds and so forth. I know that
yeah,
the drums are red. Uh,
okay, that looks cool. Like that.
but you know what? They don't look like the troopers, but they look like the troopers, if that makes any sense. I could look at that and I could instantly see who that drum corps is. And
Oh
whether
yeah,
that is whether that's the fact that they're wearing the troopers' hats or the fact that they've got the scarf or just the overall look of the uniform, you know, there's no question who that is, which I think is cool.
yeah. And I actually got to watch their video. It was from far away though. It wasn't like an up close video where I could actually see detail. But I'm really impressed with what they're doing. So, I can't wait to see what the final product is in finals. But I
Yeah,
really like their opening. They kind of started this wagon train kind of a thing going on. Really cool. Really
Yeah,
dug it.
the bit of the show that I have seen, I don't think that they're going to come out as hot as they did last year, but only because I think the show has got a certain level of maturity more than the show last year did. There's a lot more in the show. There's a lot more subtlety in the show. It's not as, I hate to use the word gimmicky, but last year there were some kind of gimmicky bits to the show, especially the whole pre-show sequence with the buzzing fly and all that stuff. That's not there. Um, I saw a video of them where they're saying that I think we had it on one of our podcasts here, where they'd found a singer that sounds remarkably like John Wayne. Yeah, he does.
Johnny Cash.
Or Johnny Cash. Yeah, Johnny Cash. John Wayne. But yeah, he does. It's frightening how much he sounds like Johnny Cash. Also, they're going to give the Blue Devils a run for the high electric guitar for the year. Um,
Yeah.
this ain't your grandfather's troopers anymore. But overall, from what I could see, I like the bones of the show. I need to see a second viewing of it. So
Yeah, same here, and hopefully maybe like a flow marching version of it. I don't think they've been on a flow marching broadcast yet.
no, they haven't.
Because
They
usually,
haven't.
and people bag on flow, but I mean they are doing the best. They're learning the shows right now. They're learning like where to go for the different parts of the shows. They've never seen them before. So a lot of people bag on flow a lot. I'm like, dude, at least we have it. Back in the day, we used to have to wait for the DVD to come out or the Blu-ray,
Exactly.
and then
Exactly.
see it, or pirate
These
it from
these
somebody. But anyway.
these kids today don't know how good they got it though. Because back in our day, you didn't even know what anybody scored until you got to the Suvi booth and picked up a copy of Drum Corps World. So
Exactly. I still have some of
you,
those from 91, 92.
hey, I wrote for Drum Corps World for a year. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, yeah. So 2017, I wasn't able to march with Kids Grove that year, and so rather than just completely come, I was the European correspondent for Drum Corps World, and
That's very
fun
cool.
funny little story because when I went to DCE Championships in Kerkrade in the Netherlands, I just walked into the stadium like I owned the place. I'm here from Drum Corps World, and like they thought it was like a really big deal. So I got seats up in the press box, and it was absolutely chucking it down with rain and pretty cold as well. And I had Mandy and my youngest daughter with me, and they were up in the press box with me as well. So they had this. I'm going off on a tangent here, but they had this like ice chest, if you will, full of snacks and drinks for the judges up in the press box. My youngest discovered that she loved something called stroopwafels, which is like
Oh yeah.
a Dutch like waffle cookie type thing with like caramel in the middle of it. And this thing
Yeah.
was full of stroopwafels, right? And the whole time she's just out there just boop, I'll have that. Boop, I'll have that. Next thing you know, all the stroopwafels were gone. Turns out there was about 50 stroopwafels in her handbag. She just been stashing them in her. At some point, one of the Dutch
Nice.
judges went, "Well, I think I'm gonna have a stroopwafel with my brew." And turns out, no, he's not going to have a stroopwafel because the stroopwafel monster was up there. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, so that's the troopers. Next up, we talked about them earlier in the episode, is Vanguard. I have my opinions. You have your opinions. I'll go first, and then everybody will forget all the bad shit that I say by all the good stuff that you say. I find it really weird that the Santa Clara Vanguard is not just that they're wearing blue, but they are wearing literally the Blue Devils shade of blue. That is literally. It's like they went to Concord and said, "Do you have any spare fabric knocking about?" Um, I like the look though. I think that the whole thing with Vanguard is that they really, really changed the game with their look for Babylon. Um, to me, this gives it sort of like a sort of a Fallout type vibe to the actual look, if you will. Um, I think that the red and the blue contrast incredibly incredibly glaringly, but I don't know if that glaringly is a bad thing either. Um, I like the show. I find it's isn't it funny that I find it odd to see a show without props.
Yeah, well, Bluecoats, they really don't have props. They have movable platforms. So last year, I mean, they had the last 2 years, 3 years, they've had these gigantic freaking props, just
Mm,
huge suckers, monstrosities, and they go to just platforms. And I think that
yeah,
was the point,
and they use it,
and
and they use
which is, and
them
I think,
really, and they use them really, really effectively. Though they use them really
yeah.
effectively. I
And one
suppose
thing I was reading about, go ahead.
I suppose the only thing that I would say about Vanguard, and I've only seen the show once or twice, and I think it's a show that I need to see once or twice more before I can really get a proper read of the show. But my initial thoughts with Vanguard was, to me, there seems to be a lot of scatter and flutter drill in the show. And when you have props a la the Blue Devils or a la the Blue Coats of old, I guess, you can kind of hide that a little bit. When you don't have anything on the field to take away from the eye, and I can see one or two stutter slash flutter slash scatter drills is fine. Anything more than that, it starts to strike me as a little bit of lazy drill writing. And I'm sure that's not the case. They've had 2 years to develop the show. I do wonder if there's maybe something more coming into this show at some point, from whether that's
Oh, I'm
some
sure there will be.
staging or some props or something like that, because it does seem to me like it's almost like it needs them. As crazy as that may sound, in a world where everybody hates props, especially old people like us. But yeah, anyway. So, but I think I like the show, but I need to watch it once or twice more. I like the
Yeah, and
Kendrick
their
Lamar
whole thing
bits
is,
though.
yeah, and their whole thing is vagabond. You can only the only thing vagabonds have is what they can carry on their backs. All of the guard equipment is on the backs of the brass players.
Yeah, I noticed that. That is pretty cool, and I hadn't really thought about it that way about what is a vagabond.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And honestly, I don't. I probably need to see it a few more times, but the blue and the red for some reason just don't work for me because they're kind of part of the RG, the red, green, blue, primary colors.
mm.
So for me, I don't think they don't work for me in the same way. And when they're on the field, they're going to have green. So they're going to be red, blue, and green, the
but
primary colors. And maybe that was their intent.
but again, this is a uniform. This goes back to what I was saying though, in that this is another one of those uniforms that is designed really, I think, to be seen up close. How much of all of the individual elements of this uniform, are you actually going to see from the stands? Even at Lucas Oil, it's just going to look like blue and red. So I think it needs something there.
Yeah, and
I did notice they've got the Vanguard V in the front, which is cool. You know, I'd like to maybe see something done with that. But the question is, can you do something like that at this point?
yeah, and I'll reserve my judgment. And that's for and everybody that's watching. Our opinions right now are probably going to change, just like we did when we were talking about the uniform reveals in the past. It always looks different on the field. It looks different at finals. But these are our first
Oh,
impressions. So,
opinions change all over the place, because if there's anybody here that follows Drum Corps Planet, you'll have seen my way too early pre DCI season top 12 guess. I had the Blue Devils in fourth, so fat chance that's going to happen.
all right,
So,
let's move on.
and let's move on. Let's start wrapping this thing up a little bit and talk about some scores, shall we?
All
So, the
right.
first thing we'll
Now,
look at
what
is
was interesting to me is the core at the crest was 2 nights.
it
So
was,
that
yeah,
was
wasn't
kind
it?
of interesting. Exact same people, just 2 different nights.
Well, I think the first night was at a different stadium, was it not?
I think it was at Mount Sac both times.
Oh, was it? So what? I noticed one of them student edition. Maybe the whole crowd was students. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I think it was like they did like in the lot sessions and stuff like that where they can learn in the lot,
Right,
which is kind
right.
of cool. It's a cool idea.
I
I just
noticed
was kind of interesting. It's the first time I've ever seen that.
Now let's talk about that. Let's talk about bandos, shall we? Back in our day, we used to say bandos, and it was a derogatory term, right? I watched Core at the Crest at the student edition, and all I saw was just massive cheering and support from the kids in those stands. Somebody for the color guard would throw a five, and they'd go lose their minds, you know. And what you're forgetting is that, you know, those are the kids that wanted to be on that field, or that will be on that field, you know. I think it's super cool.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool, and I think that anybody that, if you're in drum corps now and you talk about band kids like it's a bad thing, check yourself. Just check yourself is what I'd say.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at some scores. So the first thing we'll look at the most recent score. So the first thing we'll look at is the scores from Madison, which was Drums on Parade. And we had the Blue Stars winning there with a 68, Colts with a 67.6, and Madison's come out pretty strong with a 65.85. I'd say they're right in the mix there with two top 12 cores, really.
Yeah, I mean, generally the difference between first and 12th is about 10 to 11 points. You know, because usually if they're scoring a 98 in first place, it's about an 86 and 87-ish.
Mm-hmm.
It may be down to 85. It just depends on the year, right? So they're definitely in that mix. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I recall, Madison came out last year, I think, in the high 50s. So yes, that was a really good, strong start for the Madison Scouts this year. Should we have a look at the recaps?
Yeah, let's take a look at those.
Why not? Let's have a look at the recaps. So the recaps, general effect went to...
Well, Madison got GE 13-8. They won GE and GE2 there.
They won GE2, yeah.
It's like completely flipped.
Now, pardon my ignorance. What is GE1 and GE2? Is it just two GE judges and then they combine for an average, or what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an average, yeah.
Or no, they
look
just
how they're
combined.
Completely flipped, yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
It's crazy, that. So obviously, it's funny how two different judges can see two different things, you know. And again, I've always said that, you know, the scores aren't the end all be all, but we do. It is a competitive activity, but at the end of the day, scores are based on opinions. And again, when you look at the spread there's not a great deal of spread on either way. Visual went to the Blue Stars, which I've seen the Blue Stars show. Now, I'm going to say this about the Blue Stars. I like the show this year. I like the show quite a bit. They have a really solid brass line. And I shot all over the Blue Stars last year. I don't apologize for that. But I really like their show this year. They've got a lot of little individual things in there that I think are really cool. Jen mentioned in a private chat that we have about individual guard elements referring to bits of their history, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, look what's interesting with the Colts there. They actually got first in visual analysis, and then they, in color guard, they're really close with the Blue Stars. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And then scoot on down the road.
Music, brass went to the Colts. Having seen the Colts, I'd probably go that way. Again, only a 10th there. Then we had music analysis going to the Blue Stars. I think the Blue Stars from a book perspective probably have a more wide open book. I do think that the Colts this year have lost a little bit of that. What's that word I'm looking for? Is it richness of the brass sound that they had last year? And again, it's probably just early season. It's really hard to make those sorts of statements anyway. But again, looking there, I mean, Madison is right there. They're keeping up with everybody musically. So I think Madison could be one to watch this year. And then
absolutely.
So that's Drums on Parade, and then the other one was Core at the Crest. So we've got two divisions competing. This will start with open class. Blue Devils B with a 63.7. Followed up by Gold with a 59.45, Vessel with a 50 on the dot, Impulse with a 49.15, and Blue Devils C with a 45.8. And then in world class, Pacific Crest with a 62.7. A little bit lower than I would have expected them to come out this year. But again, I think that this year's show is probably a little bit more mature than last year's. And then you got Mandarins 71.25 to Santa Clara's 72.35. But walking away on the night was the Blue Devils with a 77.1. I have thoughts there. Let's have a look at the recap before I open my big gob. So we'll look at world class. I'm sorry. Let me just do this real quick, Justin. Let me just shift us up out of the way. There we go. All right. So Blue Devils straight ones across the board. I think there's probably no great surprise there. What's going on here? Hold on a second. There you go. So Blue Devils straight ones across the board, with the exception of percussion achievement. They were second in percussion achievement, but other than that, straight ones across the board. Looking at general effect. Now, this one surprises me, Justin. I don't see how Santa Clara is beating Mandarins in GE.
I don't either, just being honest, and nothing against Vanguard. I just don't. There's not, and I don't know. Like I said, those colors. I mean, maybe it's different being there live. The colors come out differently, but the colors really create a visual kind of ambiguity, for Santa Clara that was really hard to read. And I don't know. I mean, I thought Mandarins would easily take them in GE, but once again,
that is the caption.
Santa Clara came out really strong.
Santa Clara came out strong.
Santa Clara came out strong.
I think as well that the judges probably don't quite know what to do with them as well, because don't forget Santa Clara is coming on first at every show at the moment. So we've got to rank and rate. I'm trying to be kind here and not say that they're giving them some welcome back points, but I think they might be getting a little bit of welcome back points. But that's neither here nor there. I disagree with that particular caption. But again, Mandarin's very, very close. Looking at visual, Mandarin's second tied for with Vanguard in visual. I don't think there's any question. Vanguard does march well.
And look at the difference between them and Blue Devils. It's only 1.1.
How can you judge that with all of the stuff that Blue Devils have going on with the capes and all the flowing bits?
Yeah. I mean, and to me, honestly, like you said, it's just kind of the same thing that we've seen from year to year. They kind of come out and they move, but they're not really marching. And then they march a little, and then they go to a form, and then it's just kind of the same. It's just the same, and it's not like it's bad. They perform it well. But it's just kind of the same thing from year to year that we've seen. It's just kind of the.
Again, it's comparing apples and oranges. You think back to our day, we were judged against the Velvet Knights on the same sheets.
True that.
So that's visual. Tied for second between Santa Clara and Mandarins. Looking at music, Mandarins were third across the board there. Santa Clara was second with the exception of percussion analysis. Santa Clara's percussion is rock solid, and I'm really, really shocked that there was a .85 spread between them and Blue Devils in this caption, especially the fact that Blue Devils beat him in percussion. I think Santa Clara's percussion hasn't lost a beat from when they were winning.
Oh yeah,
Sanfords.
They haven't. Yeah, and
the thing is,
look at the percussion score. Yeah.
And let's not forget as well, Santa Clara, when they had their year off, their staff was kept in situ. Their staff kept getting paid. They've had 2 years to design this show. So it shouldn't come as a shock to anybody that they're good, you know. And the other thing that shouldn't come as a shock is that they are still a destination corps, you know. 1 year away wasn't enough to make that go away, you know. Now the Mandarins have become a destination corps, but Santa Clara's always been one, you know.
Yeah.
So when I
And I
look at
think the big difference between you go ahead, sorry.
when I look at Santa Clara coming back, you know, one of the questions that was being asked was, is Santa Clara coming back going to hurt the Mandarins? I'd say no, it's not going to hurt the Mandarins, but it is going to hurt Pacific Crest.
Yeah. And I think when I saw the Mandarins come out, I don't think they came out as strong as the Vanguard did. I think though what's going to happen though throughout the season is Mandarins are going to clean up really good,
Mm.
and I think if they can really harness their show concept into the visual, into the general effect, I think they're going to be super strong and super competitive like they were last year. They
I do
really
think
top for me. They were the top GE last year.
I, I do
Mandarins.
think Mandarin's show has a lot more room to grow than probably anybody else in the top six that I've seen so far, with the exception of perhaps Phantom Regiment. I think Phantom Regiment's show has a lot of room to grow as well. Um, so, and then this is something I like to look at on a kind of a daily basis. Just it's a little visual representation of where we stand at the moment. So if we were ranking everybody at the moment, we've got currently in first place the Blue Devils, followed up by Carolina Crown, followed up by Boston, then Vanguard, Phantom Regiment, Mandarins, Cavaliers, Blue Stars, Colts, Madison Scouts, and rounded out so far with who we've seen is, of course, Pacific Crest. But this goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you look at where Cavaliers sit, you know, there's a definite gulf between them and the top six. You know, I think that the top six that we're looking at ranked right there is the top six that we're going to see this year. I think some rankings will jump around in there. Obviously, we've got Bluecoats to throw in there as well, so top seven. You know, but to me, Cavaliers are dangerously close to that mire for that making it into top 12. And I do think, whereas last year we had like the top six, top seven, and then there was like a group between, say, 7th and 10th, and then it was 11th to 16th. I think that 11th to 16th this year, you could probably jump that up to 9th. Really.
Mm. Yeah, let's see what happens, right?
So
We still got many weeks to go.
we do have many weeks to go. So I'm gonna stick you on the spot here as we're getting. Okay, and now finally, Justin. Earlier in this podcast, I'd mentioned that I did a way too early to tell DCI top 12. I've actually done 14, if I'm honest with you. So I'm going to put you on the spot and say, let's hear yours. But while you're thinking about that, I'll do mine. And I'll give a little explanation as to why I think each. So in first place, I've got Bluecoats. And the reason why is I think that when you get Bluecoats and Blue Devils and Boston head to head, I think that show just stands above the rest as by far the most innovative of the lot. In second place, I do have the Boston Crusaders. I like the show. I think that it's got a lot more to it. And I think that in the case of the Blue Devils, I think they've come out really strong. But I do wonder how much more they can do with that show other than just clean it up. So, and there's no doubt, it's already pretty clean, but there's no doubt that Blue Devils is going to clean the shit out of that show. But that being said, I do see them finishing third this year. So I think Boston and Bluecoats will overtake them. Fourth place, I've got Crown. I've got a little bit of a gap between Blue Devils and Crown, by the way. To me, Crown is the same thing as they are most years. Stunning brass line, very good color guard, and an okay percussion. So And to be fair, I think Crown's percussion maybe gets judged a little more harshly than I think that they should. Um, but when you compare them to the corps above them, I think that they are definitely waning in that particular caption. Fourth place I've got fourth place I've got Crown. Fifth place I've got Phantom Regiment. Followed very closely in sixth place by the Mandarins. And I've got Santa Clara in seventh. And much like last year's fifth, sixth, seventh, I think this year's fifth, sixth, and seventh could go to any one of those three corps. I think Santa Clara could end up in fifth just as easily as they could end up in seventh. Okay. Eighth place, I do have then a pretty sizable gap between seventh and eighth. Down to I've got Cavaliers in eighth place. I think that the simple fact is that that drum line is too good to place them any lower. Ninth place, I've got the Troopers. 10th place, I've got the Colts. And here's the bit that may surprise you. In 11th place, I've got Spirit of Atlanta. I've seen early video of Critters. That is going to be an amazing drum corps show. There is a lot going on there. And everybody keeps saying that Cavaliers have a new staff. Well, guess where their old staff went? They went to Spirit of Atlanta. So I've got Spirit of Atlanta in 11th. And in 12th, I've got the Crossmen. So yes, as crazy as it may sound, I'm knocking two finalists out from last year. And even though I said really nice things about them, I've got the Blue Stars in 13th. And in 14th, I've got the Blue Knights. And then behind them, shortly behind them, I'd have Madison Scouts. But I think that again, that 15th through 10th, or maybe even 9th, but definitely 15th through 10th, I'll be shocked if there's more than 2 points between that whole lot.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to get some hate
Well,
for knocking two out, but I just think that bracket of drum corps has just become so ultra competitive that any one of them could beat any one of them on any given night. So there you go.
Well, I think our 7th through 12th is going to be pretty similar. So let's start at the top.
Okay.
I think Boston is for sure gonna take it. I could be wrong, right? I've been wrong before. Blue Devils, I think, is going to stay in second, only because the Blue Coat show is going to be so out there, they're not going to know how to judge it,
Fair
and kind of
comment.
like what happened in '93.
And even though I had
You
BD in third, much like I'm talking about my 10th through my 10th through 15th, 16th place bracket, I'll be shocked if there's more than a half a point between first and third.
yeah, it's going to be really tight. So I agree with you there. I think Blue Coats is going to be in third just because they're gonna get the Star of Indiana syndrome, where Star only lost by a couple tenths of a point because honestly, in '93, the first and second place there was a huge gap between that and third.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, the top three is going to be really tight. I don't think there's going to be a lot of variance. Crown possibly could creep into the top three and push Blue Coats out. So it could be
I
a
just don't
swap
see
there
what else
for
you. I
me.
just don't see what else you can do with that show though, other than clean it.
Yeah, yeah. You never know. It's true. So Crown in fourth, Phantom in fifth. I think I agree with you there. Mandarins in sixth, Santa Clara in seventh, Cavaliers in eighth, Troopers in ninth, Colts in 10th. But I think Spirit of Atlanta might be able to. This is my other flip where I think that Spirit of Atlanta could possibly get 10th. I haven't seen them yet, so I don't know. I don't have anything really to go off of,
What I would
but
say
that's
about
just my
Spirit,
guess.
the bit that I've seen. Now, the bit I've seen, I've been sworn to secrecy. I won't say who's shown it to me. But what I would say is that there's a lot going on. So that could just as easily land them in 15th as it could land them in 10th, 11th.
Yeah. So we'll have to see it, and maybe we can do a mid-season, like recalculation or something, because I haven't really seen Spirit, and I haven't seen any of the other cores really.
Hmm.
I think Crossman's going to be in 12th because last year they were super good. Um, and I actually thought they should have made top 12, but we'll see what happens. And then you're right, it's going to be knocking out the others. And once again, I haven't seen Blue Knights, so I don't know. You know, I'm just taking my guess from what I've seen so far. So
So I put
there's my
Crossman
top
into
12.
12th. So I actually had Blue
Mhm.
Stars in 12th until today, and then I've seen Crossman today. And the reason that I flipped those two is just simply because Crossman's music is just so accessible. It's kind of an old school drum corps show. It's super accessible music. It's music you recognize, and it's played quite well. So that's the reason. But again, like I said, for me, between 10th and 15th, 16th, I think it's going to be just as much, if not more, of a bloodbath than it was last year. So, and with that,
Yeah,
let's wrap
last
it
year
up.
was really hard to predict.
So with that, let's wrap it up. Hey, do you know, before we go, I'm gonna run you some crazy numbers here. You ready for this? Did you know?
Yes.
Hey, Justin, check it out. Come here. Did you know 63% of the people that watch our videos are not subscribed?
How dare you? How dare you not subscribe? 63% of you. Come on now.
63%. If you're one of those 63%, right down there, like, subscribe button. If you think that our way too early top 12 predictions were right, stroke our egos. If you think that we are completely talking out of our assholes, by all means, let us have it. And you can do that in the comment section below. So yeah, no, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you very much for watching. Justin, I know it's been a pain in the ass because you're not at home right now, but thanks for jumping on. It would have been weird doing a podcast
Absolutely.
by myself. I think we have Jen back next week because I do also know that most of our viewers actually like Jen the best out of the three of us. So,
You know,
nah. Our
I
takes
do
are
too. How about that?
our takes are a bit hotter. So anyway, so that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you guys this time, same bat time, same bat channel. That's a little reference for all you 1990 freelancers out there. And as I say every week, no matter where you're doing it, no matter when you're doing it, no matter who you're doing it with, or no matter how you're doing it, just make sure that when you're doing it, you know what to do.
March on.
You tell them, you march
March
on.
on. Get a march on.
March on.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao.